Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make your tracks more professional and fuller while using less elements. I get a lot of questions about how to do this, and I've gotten a lot of tips that I picked up on myself just from making tracks in the past that were had way too many elements. I don't want to say too full, but way too many elements, and it wasn't really that professional sounding. And I've learned a lot of stuff that I'm going to be relaying to you guys in this video. And yeah, as always, if you guys want to support me, the link to my sample packs is right at the top of the description. I don't make a whole lot off of these videos, but with these sample packs and different things like that, I'm able to keep going and keep bringing you guys new content every single day, and we can all keep learning how to do this together. And yeah, so I have this little track in front of me that I've been working on. It's this house track. I'll play it for you really quick. So yeah, as you can hear, this is a pretty simple track. It really embodies the stuff I was talking about. When you listen to this, it's very focused. You can pick apart every single element on its own if you're really listening. Of course, you're not really going to hear the background percussion just when you're not really paying attention for it, but if you really sit there and try to analyze, nothing is getting lost with other things. It's not like, we have two hi-hats and then two percussions and everything is all happening in the background. It's very focused. It's like, one main hi-hat, one little close hi-hat, and then one tambourine, and they're all playing different things. And so this is what you really need to try to focus on, is just only use the essential elements. This is my first tip. Again, like I said, if you look at this, there's really not a whole lot of extra stuff. Like, maybe you could turn this thing off. But you can hear the idea can be boiled down to a pretty simple thing and pretty simple elements. And that's really what you need to do, I feel like if your essential elements, and by essential elements, I mean just kick, bass, main synth lead, percussion, hi-hats, just the straight up stuff that is going to be in most tracks. If those aren't really strong on their own, then you need to just move on and try to do something else, I think a lot of times people think that to make a track better, you have to add something, but really the key is just to only use the essential elements that you need, and then, every time you feel like you want to add something, just go in and try to work with those essential elements. And so the way this might look in your creative process would be maybe you start an idea and you don't have a reference track, you just kind of have an idea, and you start putting it in, and maybe you do go in and do 5 layers of synths, a bunch of extra percussion and stuff like that. That's fun. It's great. That's kind of like building a palette, but then what you have to do is just take that palette and again boil it down to just the essential elements. So yeah, that's the first thing. Only using the essential elements that you really need, and none of the sort of extra background stuff is really going to help. If you have your essential elements sounding really good, you're not going to need the extra background stuff. So the next tip here is happening with these two. If you look at these, you can see how these two chord steps, these are just these different things from some sample packs I chopped up. You can see I chopped this one and I consolidated it. I chopped this one up a bunch as well. And you can hear what's happening here. With these two, basically, the first one plays, and then the second one plays. And then the first one plays again. It's like, they're not fighting for the same space, even though it is two elements, and it's really pretty busy if you think about it. But because they aren't overlapping, and because they're not fighting for the same space or the same moment where they would play, it's totally cool. If I did something like this would probably be too much. If this was playing at the same time as this other part over here. See, like that, you can't really hear what's going on. But then when you have these in two different spaces where one plays and then the other plays, It's a lot more beautiful that way. And then also, just making sure, like, if you have two sounds like this, that they're not going to fight. They can't overlap, but they also can't fight with each other. And how that looks here is, like, you can see, like, here we have these kind of more stabby chords. And then instead of going into another, like, bouncy thing like this, I just did a and kind of just let that ring out. So it's like just really being in tune with that and being aware of like not having your elements overlap and just making sure like you're only communicating one thing at a time. That's what you really need to try and work on. And of course, like in the case here, like this little like synth riff up here, that's just it's just this thing that I pitched it up at some point, but I reversed it a bunch and like just did a bunch of stuff to that. But like you can have these playing side by side. But again, like just making sure nothing's fighting. This works because they're all three doing really different things. So yeah, you just want to make sure you don't have any overlapping elements. And this kind of brings me in to my next point, which is just having everything really hyper-focused in its own range. If you listen to these, like, the reason why you can hear these three things individually is not because of some magical mixing secret. It's like if you look at the mixing here, it's really straightforward. I don't even have anything on the second stab. The first one's just a high pass filter, and then the little like synth is just a sidechain. But it's because the sounds already fit together just as a quality of what sounds they are that we don't need all this extra mixing. I think a lot of people think you can have a bunch of busy stuff happening and then just sort of like mix it all together, but that's really not it. Mixing should really just be like this little, high pass filter on here. Like, if you look at the kick and bass here, it's just like a little bit of saturation, or same deal with the percussion. Like, we don't need to really do too much because everything is really focused on like its particular range of the frequency spectrum. So you just have to be really aware of that and just keep that in mind at all times when you're making tracks. Like just thinking like, do I have two things fighting for the same space here? Is this the most concise that it could possibly be? I think really the key to making tracks that are more full and professional doesn't even come from like techniques. It really just kind of comes from like telling yourself like, I'm not going to make this track too full. Like every step of the way, just making sure like, are these overlapping? Like, are these having problems? Because that's kind of how I made this. Is essentially like I had this, and it was actually a lot more. I had like these two synths, just doing a lot more stuff, and that was essentially what happened. Is like that sounded kind of dope on its own, but then I got to a point where it was like, everything needs to just kind of be hyper focused, and you can't have everything just like trying to fight for the space. It's not about like if you can. Like yes, it is possible if you want to try and mix all this stuff together. You might be able to do it, but it's really just going to sound better if you kind of aim for what I'm talking about here. Like we don't need to do much mixing because the sounds as a quality of the sounds and like just naturally because of the sound that it is, it's just going to have, it's just going to fit perfectly. So yeah, those are my main tips. I think you really just need to make sure you're only using your essential elements, only the things that you really like need in the track to make it professional and make it work. Then on top of that, you want to make sure you don't have any overlapping elements. Like I said, like with these synth stabs, like just making sure like, if you have like something playing right after another sound, just cutting it out so that you can just focus on one sound at a time. A big part of your track sounding professional is making sure you're not overloading the listener. And then the last tip is just make sure that everything is really hyper-focused in its own range, meaning like not just the mixing, but like the sounds that you're choosing to put together aren't going to clash already. Like again, these three elements have very minimal mixing, and even with the drums and bass, you can still hear each individual element, and that's what you need to focus on. And the way you get that is just by making sure you don't have anything fighting for the same space. And yeah, so that's me for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, to support me, you guys can check out my sample packs right at the top of the description. Again, I don't make a whole lot of money off these videos, but if I've helped you guys learn some stuff and have a good time with music production, it really helps me out. Every little bit counts. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.